Hello, everyone. How are we doing? I'm Chris, and I am back with another James Bond review. And annoyingly, my light is glaring right above me. I probably should have checked that before I went live, but hey, we're doing it live. It's fine. We're going to move things around. I'm going to pretend that's not there. Maybe move back. It'll add a little bit of mood lighting. Why the hell not? How are we all doing? So I am here tonight to talk about From Russia with Love. And I mentioned last time that I didn't want to call these reviews, but it pretty much is going to be a review of From Russia with Love. Obviously, the 1963 film directed by Terence Young and the second James Bond film. In case you didn't get the memo, and I think I mentioned last week that this is in every single Odeon cinema in the country. But certainly most of them, I think, are screening all of the James Bond films week by week, all the way through till October, because there's 25 of them. And yeah, we're into the second week with this one, From Russia with Love. Obviously, next week's going to be Goldfinger. And if you stick around till the end of the review, I'm going to tell you what time I'm going to go live and everything next week for that one. But that's going to be a fun one to do, as indeed all of these James Bond films are, because it's always good to go back through them. I mean, I watched this film. I think this is like, again, similar to Dr. No from last week. And by the way, if you haven't checked out my Dr. No review, in a not so not so smooth segue right there, go and check it out. You can find it. It's the last video on my channel. There we go. God, I had to click that about 4 times to bring that up. There we go. You can find that on my channel. There is a playlist now as well for 60 Years of Bond, which is, this series is. And yeah, week by week, we're going to add all of these videos in. And of course, if you're enjoying these, I do encourage you to subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, discussions, and live streams. I'm kind of jumping on reviews whenever, really. At the moment, I am kind of with the James Bond films, but if something crops up in between, I mean, next week we've got the new Doctor Strange film coming out as well, which of course I'm going to go and see, and I'll be doing a review for that as well. So there is going to be other stuff. Moving into May, we're going to have, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series as well on Disney+. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm going to be doing more reviews as the weeks go by. So do subscribe to the channel. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter to know when I'm going live for all of these things. Link there is, it's going across the screen. It's at Hobbit Fan Editor. That's at Hobbit Fan Editor. And because we are talking Bond, I want to hear from you guys as well. What is your favorite James Bond film, and who is your favorite Bond? It's a double whammy of a question, because I'm really curious. It's always great to hear everyone's opinions. And we've got Carl in the comments, as always. Good to see you, my good man. How are we doing tonight? And of course, I have my trusty beverage with me. And we're here to talk From Russia with Love. So I have no plan for this thing. I don't know where this conversation's going to go. We're just going to chill. We're going to talk some James Bond. We've got Mythic Dawn. How are you doing, my friend? Good to see everyone. Good. So, From Russia with Love, I mean, part of the reason that I wanted to, watch all of these films again, other than the fact that they're James Bond films and I'm a fan and I want to see them, is because I want to see, now that I have seen all 25 of them, which I hadn't done last year, a lot of them were kind of first-time watches for me. I want to see how the films are going to be possibly re-ranked, whether I like films a lot more than I initially did. Maybe some I dislike a lot more than, last year when I first watched them all. Or maybe they've stayed about the same. Now, From Russia with Love, this was always one of my favorite ones. I can't remember if I put this in my, whereabouts I put it in my top 10, but I know for a fact it was in my top 10 James Bond films. And going to see it again tonight, I was thinking, like, I really hope this is as good as it is. I mean, I watched it fairly recently last year. I mean, I can't even remember when I started watching them. I think it may have been around the same time, actually, probably around April or May time. And rest assured, I can say, after seeing this on the big screen, this is still one of my favorite James Bond films. And in fact, I'm going to have to confirm this for next week when I see Goldfinger, but this might be my favorite Sean Connery James Bond film. And I don't know if I'm like way off base on that one, but I know that this film definitely has its fans, as indeed Goldfinger does. Now, I think I've probably been one of the, for my part at least, one of the biggest fans of Goldfinger because of its place in the Bond history. Goldfinger, next week's review, is the one where the formula really started to come together, and that's kind of your default formula for a James Bond film, which obviously they ran with for all of the movies that they did afterwards. But fairly recently, and from hearing from a lot of people aren't as warmed up to Goldfinger as I initially thought they were. Goldfinger would always be on lists for me as, up there, if it's not the greatest Bond film ever. You know, everyone praises and quite rightly so, the Shirley Bassey theme song as well. And there's so many ingredients and everything that people seem to gravitate towards Goldfinger. But having discussions with people and, you know, hearing from people last year, people thought it was like really overhyped. They all enjoyed it, but, you know, and then From Russia with Love, for example, has a lot of fans and a lot of diehard fans, and I can absolutely see why. And whilst I put so much on the shoulders of Goldfinger as this one where, you know, the formula came together, which I think it initially did, there are still a lot of elements introduced in this film which carry on over. So, you know, I don't know if Goldfinger can get all the credit for having that formula together, but this one certainly set everything in place. You know, you've got elements in there like the pre-title sequence, Spectre and Blofeld, and the sort of after the main action's finished at the end of the film, you have like another altercation, whether it be with a henchman or whatever it happens to be. You've got Q, of course, as well, who isn't credited as Q in this, and I've forgotten was Desmond Llewellyn. I actually forgot that Desmond Llewellyn was introduced this early on in the franchise. I thought he came into it by like Goldfinger or maybe Thunderball or something. But he's not credited as Q. Boothroyd, apparently, he's credited as in this. But nevertheless, he is still the Q character, if not Q by name. And again, another element that we come to expect from all of these James Bond films. And what's wonderful about getting the chance to see these on the big screen as well is, you know, seeing these older films from the 60s, you know, will eventually move into the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, and of course, 2010s and onwards with all of these Bond films, 60 years, of course. But seeing these older films on the big screen and maybe noticing things that I hadn't noticed before on a smaller screen, or however, you know, you guys have watched it at home. And there were a lot of moments that I noticed in this one where, you know, it's the few of the cracks in the filmmaking, but I mentioned last week that I love that, you know, from the jump cuts and the, whether it's day for night shots or there's something like awkward in the frame or a little bit of crummy ADR or something like that. And it's all in this film, and it's really noticeable when it's blown up on the big screen. Some of the scenes that really kind of stood out to me with that, it's the scene where Bond is on the boat with Tatiana, and he has the tape recorder and he's recording her describing the Lecter, which is then, you know, being fed back to M back in London. And it's a long shot, and Tatiana says something, but the actress doesn't move her mouth. And of course, Tatiana's character, Tatiana Romanova, played by Daniela Bianchi, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Italian actress. Her lines were, of course, dubbed again, this time by Barbara Jefford. And that must have been just, you know, a crack in the filmmaking where you hear her voice, but she's not moving her mouth. And you, on a big screen, you can quite clearly see that she's not moving her mouth. It's just kind of little transitionary things like that I noticed. There's a bit with Rosa Kleb's character as well, where it's over the shoulder and you can see her mouth and the ADR's not in sync with the mouth movements. You know, it happens in films nowadays. Like, it's, you know, that's what ADR's for. And, you know, some of these things happen. There are a few jump cuts as well, I noticed, certainly when Sean Connery is, I think it's in the scene where you've got, sorry, I'm having to look at the characters' names, guys. I've only seen this film 3 times, so I don't have all the side characters' names down just yet. But you've got Pedro Armendáriz, I think that's how you pronounce the actor's name, Kerim Bey, where he's got like the sniper rifle and he shoots the guy, you know, she should have kept her mouth shut, when he shoots that guy from the sign. It's when Connery's putting that gun together, I believe. And there's a jump cut to, obviously, maybe he was having some hard time putting this gun together, or maybe it was taking too long and they needed like a snappier take of Bond like throwing this gun together. So there is a noticeable jump cut there. And the other one I noticed, there were probably a lot more in there, were where you've got the character of Red Grant, and it's right after Bond speaks with Kerim Bey's son and gives Karim's son his father's personal effects. And there's a shot of Red Grant on the train waiting for Bond, and there's a jump cut as he moves back into the train, and he like, it's just a couple of frames, but you know, he darts like across the screen a little bit. So those were some of the things that I noticed, but again, I don't really have a problem with those. It's just kind of interesting to see for me, you know, those kind of cracks in the filmmaking a little bit. But speaking of the filmmaking, this film had a lot of problems, and it was really down to the wire. They thought for a long time that they weren't going to hit their release date of October, I believe it was. They were going way over budget, way over time, and they were beset by like loads of problems with this. I don't know if it was the helicopter at the end, like the helicopter chase where it's like the Hitchcock scene. Actually, there's a lot of Alfred Hitchcockian moments in this film. It's the bit with the helicopter when it's like crop dusting and it's flying towards Bond. I don't know if it was that helicopter or it could have just been a helicopter with like a camera crew in there. It actually crashed into the water with all of the crew in there, and luckily they all managed to make it out. And also the actress who plays Tatiana was being driven to her shoot, and the driver apparently on the commute fell asleep at the wheel and crashed. And again, thankfully no one was really seriously injured or anything like that, or God forbid anything fatal, but it delayed filming at least her scenes by 2 weeks. And something I actually found out, I actually can't remember if I read this when I reviewed this last year, or if I've just discovered it now, but the actor who played Ali Karim Bey, who's actually one of my favorite allies in Bond. I've forgotten how much I loved his character in this. He's just a really nice character, really, really good back and forth with Sean Connery in this. You believe them as friends. It's a great connection the two of them have. He was actually diagnosed with terminal cancer during the filming of this, and he filmed as much as he could. Until he couldn't, until he wasn't able to. And then after returning home, he took his own life, which is horribly tragic. And, maybe I did read that last year, but I couldn't remember it when I kind of read through the behind the scenes to sort of prepare for this review today. It's really sad, but actually his character gets some of my favorite lines in there. For example, I forgot the scene where he's got like a girl on the bed and she's like making advances towards him. She's like saying like, "Oh, come to bed," and like massaging him. And she's like, "Oh, what's the matter? Are you not pleased to see me?" And he's like, "I'm overjoyed." And he's just so not interested. Like he's reading the paper. He's like writing something down. So that was a great moment. Hey, hello, comrade. How are we doing, my friend? Good to see you in the chat. What I want to hear from you guys as well. I realize that I'm kind of running my mouth right now. What do you guys think of From Russia with Love? Is this one of your favorite Bond films? Are there any bits of the film that you really enjoy or you have any problems with? I'm interested to hear people's thoughts on this one. And going back to the filmmaking as well, for me, the lighting in this is fantastic. And again, getting that cinema experience with it now, you appreciate it a lot more. Specifically, there's the use of shadows in this, the dark lighting, the low angle shots. Love it. Like the opening scene where it's a really clever opener as well, isn't it? Imagine seeing Dr. No for the first time, sitting down to watch From Russia with Love. You expect to see Bond from that opening scene, and you kind of do in a way. And it's this great sort of like tension-filled cat and mouse thing through the maze, and it's a really cool environment as well to have an opening scene like that. In fact, the video game of this, I think I played a couple of levels from it. I've never played the game beginning to end, but I believe that the opening level of the video game is exactly the same, where you're in the maze and everything playing as Bond. And of course, Red Grant, we've got to talk about his character as well. But the lighting in that scene, especially where you have Bond like emerge from the shadows and he has like this wash of light over him, where they shoot the lights out on the train during the fight towards the end of the film, and it's all in darkness as well, but you can still make out what's going on. The stuff in the sewers as well underneath the console. And just some really cool use of lighting. And like is it the basilica they go to as well? I believe, like just like the pillars and the corridors and the dark light. It just really worked for me seeing it on the big screen. I love the cinematography of this film. But going back to Robert Shaw, who plays Red Grant, I've always liked the character of Red Grant, and I think that the scene that everyone who is a fan of this film goes to initially is the train fight sequence at the end. Quite rightly so, because it's a phenomenal sequence. It actually might be one of James Bond's best action set pieces or fight scenes in all 25 films, as far as I'm concerned. And I always remember liking the character, but I had such way more of an appreciation for the character tonight, and I don't know why. You know, as I mentioned, this is probably like the third time that I've seen this film, 2 times in a year seeing it. But he's just so, like, for most of the film, he is this very stoic, silent, imposing character. You know, you see him at the beginning of the film, as I mentioned, that pre-title sequence, which is really clever, really plays with your expectations in that first part. And just the conceit of the character, that he is, you know, he's a Spectre assassin as much as Bond is, you know, like an MI6 agent. He's an MI6 assassin. They are so exactly similar that, you know, they're almost equal in ability and sort of getting the job done, and how ruthless they are, but they're just completely opposite sides of the playing field. And it's so fascinating to watch all of their dialogue scenes, especially the part on the train where Red Grant's got him covered with the gun, pistol whips him and tells him, you know, get on your knees and put your hands in your pockets, and that whole exchange. And yeah, you could argue it's the Bond trope, isn't it? It's another villain that is monologuing, that has every opportunity to kill Bond right there. But he mentions that, he draws reference to that. He says, but I'm enjoying this, that, you know, Bond is this revered agent, this revered, you know, agent in the field, and I've got him cornered. Like, he can't do anything, he's completely helpless. I'm going to enjoy this moment, you know, like almost like a complete psychopath in a way. And it's just a really cool moment of that character. I love the line delivery. I love his, you know, like the accent that he puts on as well, and the mannerisms. Yeah, and at the beginning of the film, you really don't get much dialogue from the character. He's this very almost robotic character, literally programmed by Spectre, isn't he, in many ways? And, you know, you see him, he's like physically fit, and he almost reminds me of like an Ivan Drago kind of character or something like that, where you've just got this very, you know, strong guy's going to get the job done, hitman kind of character. But it's towards the end of the film where he really comes into his own with that stuff on the train. Probably my favorite henchman, I guess, assassin, whatever you want to call him in the Bond franchise. Always so memorable to me, and I had way more of an appreciation. Not to say that I didn't like his character in the first place, but just seeing it again tonight on the big screen, for whatever reason, where you're really concentrating on the film and you're really appreciating that art of cinema in front of you and enjoying the film, really hit me a lot more tonight with his character. So yeah, full marks for me for Red Grant's character. We've got a comment right here. Yeah, the bed scene is funny, and the spy Grant too. Oh, the bed scene. Are you talking about the part with Tatiana, where she's kind of awaiting Bond? Are you talking about that one, or are you talking about the scene with Kareem's character with the girl on the bed? The train is pure drama for what happened. Yeah, I mean, the train sequence, fantastic, isn't it? Let's talk about the train sequence, right? It's kind of the low-hanging fruit with this film, I feel, but we need to talk about it. I'm going to take a sip of this first before we talk about it. I mean, as I just mentioned, it's one of the best scenes in all of Bond as far as I'm concerned. It's the tension, it's that build-up. And I mentioned, you know, the north by northwest comparison with the helicopter crop dusting as one of the action climaxes. It's very north by northwest, obviously an Alfred Hitchcock film, but everything on the train, everything, just the way it's shot, how claustrophobic it is, and things that I noticed watching it tonight as well, how you have Bond talking to Kareem in the train, and you have just random passers-by just sort of like squeezing between them and like carrying on down. And Bond looked like he can't trust anyone. You know, his head's on a swivel. And I never really picked up on that before, but picking up on it tonight, it's such a great build-up. You know, anything set on a train, whether it's, well, you know, anything like Murder on the Orient Express or something like that, it's always a great claustrophobic environment. It's very mysterious. You don't know who's in each car. You know, you don't know who's in each compartment. So it is kind of like a murder mystery feel, but the whole stuff with Red Grant, and I think there's an interview with Alfred Hitchcock where he talks about editing and filmmaking, and I really wish that I knew the name of this video. We had to watch it when I was at university. I did media, and I think any film student or anything, or even if you're not, if you're interested in filmmaking, you've probably seen this video. He talks about the idea of suspense and how if you reveal something to the audience beforehand, that's going to be plaguing on the audience's mind the whole time during that scene. I think he equates it to a bomb going off. I think he says that say if people are watching like a football game or something like that, and then all of a sudden in the film a bomb goes off, it's shock, it's surprise. But if you reveal to the audience that a bomb is under one of those chairs beforehand, and then you let the scene play out with like the game, that's on your mind constantly, and you're thinking like, when's that bomb going to go off? I might be misremembering the video, but just check it out. Type in, Alfred Hitchcock talks editing or suspense, something like that. And it's the same thing with a briefcase. And this is probably one of my favorite gadgets as well out of all of the Bond films. It's the briefcase. You've got the knife in the side. You've got the gold sovereigns in there too. And of course, you've got the tear gas, and set up fantastically well at the beginning of the film. This, again, as I mentioned, becomes kind of a running theme, a running trope as all these Bond films go on. And it's an ingenious moment. And this is why I love it. Bond is such a great character because he's going to get out of any situation. Unless he's Daniel Craig at the end of No Time to Die. That's a different thing. We'll get onto that when we talk about that film. But this one, Bond's going to get out of every single situation. He's going to make it out fine. But there's moments where you genuinely don't know. You want to know how he's going to get out of this situation. Everything seems bleak. Everything seems dire. All hope is lost kind of thing. But Bond is always going to use his ingenuity and like his cunning wiles, and he's going to get out of there. So you can almost see the cogs turning. He talks about the golden sovereigns, and he kind of wins his trust with that at first. And then there's the whole briefcase thing. And, Red Grant kind of gets into his head, doesn't he? And goes, I know your tactics. Something's not right with that briefcase. I'm going to use this one. And it's in that moment where, as an audience member, you're like, oh, this is brilliant. Bond's so great. And it leads to one of the best fist fights in Bond history, as far as I'm concerned. It really looks like they're going at it, in the train. And it's, the lights are off and they're almost silhouetted. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to pass over to you guys a bit more. Let me know some of your other favorite scenes from this film. This is a live chat, live discussion. Getting on the discussion, I mean, I can talk for England if I want to, and can and have. But yeah, I'm going to pass over to you guys a little bit. And while I'm waiting for some more comments to come in about From Russia with Love, once again, do subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, discussions, and live streams. I love doing these Bond videos, these Bond discussions, and just videos in general, getting to talk to all you guys about film. So it's really, really cool. Okay, let's talk about the Bond girl for a second then. So Tatiana Romanova, or Romanova. I guess I've been mispronouncing it all of these years, but some could argue that she's, a very passive Bond girl. She doesn't really get stuck in the action. She's kind of a bit, doting on Bond. But I don't know why. She's always had an appeal to me. I haven't really ranked the Bond girls. I guess that's something we could potentially do after I watch them all again and kind of refresh myself with them. But I don't know if it's just the image of, Sean Connery with, her character with Daniela Bianchi. The two just look great together on camera. And I think they have, the gentleman taking, the lady out to dinner, and Sean Connery is probably at his most charming in this film, I would say. Certainly out of, he's charming in all the Bond films pretty much. Maybe not Diamonds Are Forever. We'll get to that one in a few weeks' time. But I don't know, the chemistry between them, it just works for me. And I actually think Connery mentioned that out of all the actresses they were planning on auditioning for this character, Bianchi was actually his first choice. So maybe that has something to do with the chemistry. So I don't know, like she's not up there with the Bond girls, say from GoldenEye. Forgive me, the name escapes me. There's some other great ones. Vesper, of course, from Casino Royale is chief among them. So like she's not in that category, but I really like Tatiana Romanova's character. She's just a fascinating character to me. The whole defecting and falling in love with Bond. She serves the purpose, I guess, for the film, And this film in general, I mean, it was given twice the budget of Dr. No, and it's evident as well. It made a hell of a lot of money. So the budget of this thing was 2 million, and it made just shy of 80 million. So absolute blockbuster, which is of course why we're still getting Bond films to this day, I'm sure. And Connery, I think, took home something like, I think his salary was 54,000, I think, and I think he was given a bonus of 100,000. So the man took away 154,000. Now that might be peanuts today for an actor, but you've got to remember back in 1963, that's a hell of a lot of money. I mean, I haven't even worked out the inflation on that, adjusted for inflation. That seems like a lot to me. But he's fantastic. Like this, as far as I'm concerned, Connery's on his absolute A game with this one from Russia with Love. I'm going to have to be reminded again next week for Goldfinger, because in my opinion, I always thought his performance was better in Goldfinger, but I might be mistaken, and this might be my favorite. I'm not sure. It's going to be interesting to see how my rankings change. And I always thought I might be a bit disingenuous with my Bond rankings, kind of changing them every single time I watch them. But, speaking to people who massive Bond fans, they even said that their rankings change almost on a weekly basis. So I guess it's just being a part of a Bond fan, right? Carl says, Hitchcock was so ahead of his time, and I believe he was close to directing this film, if rumors are true, and that's why it's similar in parts. I never knew that he was close to directing it, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Now we see all of these parts, and, if that was true, then maybe the director kind of referenced parts out of, reverence of Hitchcock. I don't know, but yeah, absolutely. Speaking of retrospectives, I mean, I haven't called this a retrospective. I've technically already done a retrospective on the James Bond film, so this is kind of, I mean, it's my own thing, but it's kind of almost like a send up to those, if you will. But I am looking to do reviews on more retrospectives, and one of my favorite things is looking at a director's body of work from beginning to end and seeing how they develop or sometimes regress as an artist, So maybe Alfred Hitchcock's one that we could do, because there's a hell of a lot of Hitchcock films I still haven't seen. Of course, I've seen Psycho. It's one of my favorite horror films. I've seen Vertigo. I've seen bits of The Birds, I think. I've seen Rear Window, but other than that, there's so many Hitchcock films. He did loads, didn't he? Absolutely loads. So that could be something we could look at in the future if you guys are interested. Or maybe you can suggest some other retrospectives, film franchise reviews, or, director's body of work and stuff, because that could be really fun. And it means that I get to cross films off my list as well, which I'm all for. One thing that I really love about this film too, bringing it back to From Russia with Love, is just the fact that so much of it was shot on location as well. Now, I know a lot of it was still shot in studio and everything like that, and there's a lot of rear projection in the film, but when it is shot in location, it just adds to that grandiose scope of Bond, and that's what it's all about. And again, another trope that we come to expect, all of these wonderful exotic locations as the franchise goes on. It's just got some great set pieces. I mean, you have the train, of course, but you have Istanbul itself. And I really like the gypsy camp that they go to, the Romany gypsy camp. Some people could probably go, oh, modern standards of film, oh, we can't show a woman belly dancing now because it objectifies women and all that. And I mean, I don't know if this is a custom of Romany gypsies back in the day, the whole cat fight between the two of them to fight over who gets to marry the chief's son. I don't know if that's an addition for the film because they wanted to see woman on woman fighting, or if that is actually a custom in Romany gypsy culture. I'm not sure, but I'm not complaining. It's fine. And you know what? I get that, as the decades move on, things change and everything like that, but it doesn't come across as mean-spirited to me. There are some proper sleazy Bond moments as we get into the series. There are, and I'll be the first to admit that. But this one, I don't know if it was just the time that it was done in the 60s, and that's kind of how it was. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, obviously that's up for discussion. But Sean Connery just makes it work because he's so goddamn charming, And when he's got the two gypsy girls that are kind of led into his tent, and he goes, the chief says that you must decide, and then Connery's like, this may take a while. It's funny because they always pepper in that tongue-in-cheek humor with it. And I mentioned that last week that I don't know if it was the screenwriter who mentioned this or if it was the director, but obviously being in 1962, we've become accustomed to a lot more that we can get away with in films nowadays compared to what we could in the 60s. So Dr. No is totally tame now, like a woman in a bikini or, James Bond kissing a woman. Like, we wouldn't think anything of it now. That could probably be a PG. But back in the day, things like that were considered indecent, and like the violent, a lesser tolerance for violence and sexual scenes and innuendo in film. But because they added in that level of comedy, they mentioned that it took the edge off a lot of that material. And whether it got, it was able to get past the censors a lot more, or if people kind of turned a blind eye towards it a little bit more. And it is funny and it is great. And, the audience tonight, it wasn't completely packed. There was a fair few in there, but I think there wasn't as many as last week, which kind of confused me, because I thought From Russia with Love was way more popular than Dr. No, but maybe it was because of the 60th anniversary. I'm not sure. But there was some guys down the front that were laughing, at the Bond quips and everything like that, and some of the moments, and I'm like, they get it. I don't think the audience is ever going to top when I saw GoldenEye at the Prince Charles Cinema for the first time last year. That crowd, I mean, any screening at the Prince Charles Cinema in London, that is such a unique cinema, and the films that they play are really niche. So if people are in a screening for a film there, that they are diehard fans, and they're very vocal, and they applaud, and they joke, and there's a back and forth. There's that connection there with the film, with the audience, and it's a great atmosphere to be in. And, it was exactly the same when I went to see GoldenEye last year. Probably not going to get that in my local cinema. Everyone, especially in Britain at least, everyone seems very, a lot more straight-laced with films. They go, they sit, blank expression, they watch film. But there was a couple of Bond fans down the front that I could hear laughing, which was great. And I was chuckling at the back as well. The same can't be said for the people that were sat either side of me, but who cares? I'm having fun, even if they weren't. I do hope, though, I mean, the cinema isn't really a social experience, is it? Fundamentally, like, you sit in a dark room with strangers and you just watch a film, and that's it. And either you go to the cinema alone, or you might go with a friend or with a group of you, and everyone seems to kind of stick to their own groups. But I do hope that as the weeks go by, if we do get some familiar faces week to week, I might be able to have a conversation with them or something, or chat to them about the films afterwards if, they see regular faces there. But it really is just walk in, sit down in the dark, walk out, and you're gone. You know what I mean? So, but that guy from last week, for example, at Dr. No, when the film finished, he just got up and was like, right, I'll see you guys for the next 24. And I was like, yes, this guy gets it, So I love that. I love that. Carl, just going back to the Hitchcock stuff, Carl mentions Hitchcock's Rope is one of my favorites. I do have a DVD box set of Alfred Hitchcock, and I can't for the life of me remember where it is now. I think it might be in my wardrobe, because I've got films I've got DVDs everywhere. I've got my DVD shelf. I'm getting lazy, and I've got DVDs in front of my TV that should go back on my shelf, but I've left them in front of my TV. I've got some on a cabinet down there. I've got some boxed up in the wardrobe there, and I think I've even got some downstairs and up in the loft as well. So I know I bought a box set, and it was like a grey cardboard sleeve, and I think it had like 10 Hitchcock films in, and they're all very, very thin plastic cases, and I can't remember if Rope was one of those. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely one that I want to check out, Carl says, I'd be really interested to get your take on some of Stanley Kubrick's films, Clockwork Orange, The Shining. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, one of the best, we're talking about two of the greatest directors of all time right there, between Hitchcock and Stanley Kubrick. Interestingly enough, speaking of Kubrick, I think it was one of the set designers for this film. I think he worked on Dr. No, and he didn't come back for this one because he was working on Dr. Strangelove. So again, like a Stanley Kubrick link right there. But yeah, I would absolutely love to go through Kubrick's films. And again, there's a lot that I haven't watched. Loads of Kubrick films I haven't watched. I've seen his main ones, fundamentally. I've seen The Shining, Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket I've seen once, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Eyes Wide Shut I've seen a couple of times, I think. And I think that's it. Like, I haven't seen, is it called Paths of Glory? Is that what it's called? I haven't seen Spartacus, and I haven't seen, did he do Lolita? And there was another one as well, Barry Lyndon. I haven't seen that either. So again, there's a fair few Stanley Kubrick films that we could do as a retrospective. You guys let me know what you want to see. You know, I mean, of course I enjoy doing it, but also I want to make content that you guys actually, you know, would want to tune into and would want to check out. So I don't know, maybe I can put together like a poll of some kind. You know, we can, whether we kind of run it side by side, this James Bond week to week thing, or whether we just keep the Bond things to the current week to week thing until October, and then we switch something up for October maybe and start another series. I don't know. I suppose it depends how much free time I've got, right? But I'd be interested in doing more stuff like that. Absolutely. Let's see. I've just saw as well that From Russia with Love, I mentioned the cinematography earlier as well. It was the first film in the series to win a BAFTA for best cinematography. So there you go. Absolutely, they knew what was up. BAFTA knew what was up with this film. Okay, so I've talked about a bit behind the scenes. Connery on fine form again. You know, some of the supporting cast. I guess we could talk about Rosa Klebb, right? Because we haven't really talked about her, and she's a really, really entertaining character, and I really love her character in this. A character, you know, later on down the line, once we get to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, we get another character that's very, very similar to the likes of a Rosa Klebb kind of character. She's great. You know, she's absolutely great, played by Lottie Lenya. She's this, you know, Russian... very, very butch, domineering woman. You know, like she's making advances towards Tatiana. I didn't even remember that. You know, she's being very friendly with her. You know, she tells her to like spin around. She's checking her out. She's like touching like her face and like grabbing her knee and shit. And I didn't remember that. That was great. You know, she's this very domineering sort of matron-esque kind of character, I guess. I don't know what you'd call her. She's like a colonel. You know, she's military type, and she's so great. Very, very memorable as a bad guy. Like one of my favorite moments is where the uncredited Blofeld, you know, again, that was an element I forgot as well. When the credits are going up at the end, Blofeld is credited as a question mark. But I did actually read that the person who stood in for Blofeld's character in this was the guy who played he was the doctor. It wasn't Dr. Grant, was it? Dr. Dent, Professor Dent, sorry. Professor Dent from Dr. No. He was played by the same character, and then he had like a different voice actor who was credited as Blofeld. But the moment where Blofeld leads them both in, number 3 and number 5, so tension-filled. Like, I love that. And then the guy comes in with a knife, and then Blofeld has the really cool line where he's like, he's talking about the poison on the knife, and he goes, 12 seconds. We must, what is it like? We must work on a much more fast-acting venom or something like that. It's great. Love it. Absolutely. I love all this early Spectre stuff. And I actually I'm more fascinated by the Blofeld character from these earlier few films. I do love Donald Pleasance as, you know, Blofeld when we get to him. He's the much more sort of physically memorable character, and maybe that's due to Dr. Evil's influence as well on, you know, like 90s and 2000s culture with the Austin Powers films. And he's a lot more visually striking and memorable, but he's so far away from the Blofeld that they kind of set up with these earlier few films. I think he had like a posh British voice in the first film, and I think he's played by a Viennese actor in this one. So, but I mean, Blofeld's continuity between these Bond films is all over the fucking place. Like, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Like, he's different in pretty much every single film that he's in some way, shape, and form. So you just come to expect it. You know, it's that loose continuity between the Bond films, and it works. You know, it's absolutely fine. You know, in terms of continuity between the first film, I think maybe the only thing that they mention is the fact that Spectre want to get revenge on Bond specifically because he was responsible for the death of one of their agents, which was Dr. No. And that's it. Like, I think, I mean, there might be some more. Well, you've got his girlfriend as well, who he's in the rowboat with at the beginning when the other boat goes past, playing Matt Monroe's From Russia with Love. You've got her carrying over from the first film. So maybe those are the only 2 instances. But it works. A Bond film, in my opinion, should be viewed where like you can sit down in that theater having not seen any of the other Bond films and it still works. But there might be a few little winks and nods here to link back to previous ones if you're looking out for that. And that's kind of what I hope Bond goes to, actually, for when we get another James Bond film, another James Bond series of films, is I want them to do away from the tight-knitted story that was the Daniel Craig era. And I kind of want them to go a bit more episodic. I think a lot of people want that as well. I think a lot of people are looking for that back to basics approach, maybe with Bond, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. SeaWorld, man. I mean, you always take such a fascination in my room arrangements, but I guess I can tell you what will be happening hopefully over the course of the next few months if I can actually muster the enthusiasm to do it. Cabinet in the back will be moving to another room. I'm going to have my keyboard laid lengthways across the wall like that, facing me. I've got a cabinet there that is going to be moved. I've got a video shelf there full of videos. The videos are going to be boxed up and moved into the attic. The blank video shelf is then going to be taken away or thrown away or something like that. And yeah, I haven't quite figured it all out, but I think that's the plan. Basically, a keyboard's going there, and then I need to find somewhere for my vinyls and my record player and everything that you see before you. It's going to be very, very fun. SeaWorld Man says, what Carl suggested for you to review would be interesting perspective from your view. Kind of surprised you've not reviewed The Frickin' Shining. I'm also surprised, SeaWorld Man, because it's my favorite horror film of all time. It's incredible. So, yeah, maybe we'll do a Kubrick thing then. Who knows? There's actually another kind of I've got so many ideas for retrospectives I want to do. I really just don't know where to start, I love horror films, and I very rarely had the chance to talk about horror films on past channels. But I love horror films, and one thing that I really want to do is go through entire franchises of horror films, and a lot of them are terrible past the first film. I'm aware of this. I'm aware that Halloween's probably got like 14 films in the franchise, but I don't know. I've kind of been curious to broaden my horizons a little bit with horror films and watch a few more maybe. So that's something we could do. I mean, if this is finishing around October time, we're into the month of Halloween, aren't we? So some potential there maybe. Who knows? Let's talk about music then, because that's sort of like another big area. And I know that this is probably kind of different to the review that I did last week, but I love music, right? I need to talk about the Bond music. And very importantly is the change of composer from this one. So, of course, John Barry, this is his first score for a Bond film with this one. John Barry would go on to score many of the James Bond films. I think Living Daylights is his last one that he did. He'd periodically jump in and jump out of Bond films, but his score just feels so elevated in this one. Retains the Monty Norman theme, of course. I actually did some reading and heard that there was a bit of a discrepancy as to whether John Barry actually composed the James Bond theme as we know it, if it was actually Monty Norman, but I think it was settled that it was Monty. But Barry's score in this is fantastic. And actually this is the first film, and I think a few of the other Bond films did it as well. They introduce a new Bond theme, which I think by many is considered to be the secondary Bond theme. I think it's called Bond Steals the Lecter. And it's this really kind of, it almost sounds like a Western or something. It's this really kind of swashbuckling, heroic, happy, adventurous theme song that plays. And I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite it's like one of my favorite excerpts of music from all of the Bond scores. And every time that it plays in a Bond film, I get a massive smile on my face, and I love it. And I think I had this conversation last year, but I think we said that the theme might not work now for like modern Bond, but I think it could work. Maybe change a little bit of the arrangement a little bit. I think it could still work. it's a great theme, and it's really sorely missed for me in the Bond films. I think Bond needs to find its fun again, and as soon as Bond does that, maybe we can have Bond Steals the Lecter theme playing again. SeaWorld Man says, even from the other channel, still surprised you've not reviewed it at all. Nothing bad about that. Yeah, no, I will get to it. Absolutely. I need to kind of, I'm doing these videos around, in my free time as and when I can. Actually, I'm going to pitch this question to you guys now, because if you guys aren't really fussed about a review, then I won't really jump on one. But they're doing a Paul Verhoeven season at the cinema. Now, unfortunately, there's a new Paul Verhoeven movie every Monday and Wednesday, I believe it is. And a lot of the ones that I really want to see are on Mondays, and I work Mondays, so I can't get to the cinema, unfortunately. But I have a ticket booked for Starship Troopers tomorrow. And it's a film I've never seen before. I'm a big Paul Verhoeven fan. I love RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct. That film was an awakening when I watched that at a very young age. Showgirls is absolutely hilarious. It's, absolute guilty pleasure film. It's brilliant. But I've never seen Starship Troopers, and it's always been a film that I've wanted to cross off my list. So I'm tempted to possibly jump on a review for Starship Troopers. It'll be my first time watching it, first time opinions. I don't know if you guys are fans of that. If you'd like to see that, sound off in the comments. If you're not really fussed about seeing a review for that, do let me know. Carl says, review what you want to review, whether it's horror or a Marvel film. Kind of perfect timing with Sam Raimi coming back. Yeah, it absolutely is. I can't wait to see some of those horror elements. As I said, it's a channel to talk about your passions. Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. You're right. It's just that I have a lot of passions. There's so many films that I want to talk about, and loads of films that I haven't seen yet that I want to see. Do you guys like this format as well? Me just kind of talking to camera like this, where I can connect with you guys, or do you want to see more edited videos? Or if I do like a first time watch of a film, for example, where you've got the film kind of playing at the bottom here as I'm watching over the top of it, and I edit it into like a 15-minute video or something. Let me know what you guys want to see. I'll always talk about what I want to talk about. That's something that I always, pride myself in, that I'll always talk about what I'm passionate about. Yeah, it's more just a curiosity what you guys are into, really. Right, the music. John Barry, absolutely flawless, as I mentioned. Bond Steals the Lecter. It's one of my favorite bits of music ever, and I've been listening to it, well, not non-stop, but pretty much as soon as I got back in from that film and I had like 40 minutes to kill before jumping on for this thing, I was listening to it non-stop. The music. So Matt Monroe's From Russia with Love. I've always wondered what this film would be like because, is it a Bond theme? Is From Russia with Love by Matt Monroe a Bond theme? Because usually when you think of a Bond theme, you think of, when we come to next week, Shirley Bassey, Goldfinger, your big bombastic musical number that opens your film from the title sequence, right? This one doesn't play necessarily over the title sequence. You get a rendition of it, but it's just an orchestral one. It's a lot more upbeat. It's a lot more energetic than the slow-moving and melodic From Russia with Love. And I think that kind of works. I don't think that this theme, like the slow version, the Matt Monroe version, would have worked necessarily at that film's intro. You want to kind of, throw us into another Bond theme. And then this music kind of plays over the credits. And then you get it played on the radio as well, which is very, very strange. When the guy goes past on the boat and it's playing on the radio. But I've always wondered, if you were going to go back and, like fan edit the Bond films or something like that, like which Bond theme would you play for the first Bond film? Would you put From Russia with Love over the title sequence for this film? There is actually, speaking of and actually, I really love the song From Russia with Love. It's one that's grew on me. It's not one that I always go to listen to. I'm much more of a View to a Kill, Duran Duran or Living Daylights, Aha kind of guy. License to Kill, especially, Christ Almighty, Gladys Knight, best Bond theme as far as I'm concerned. Best Bond film, just everything. Oh God, guys, like I know that this is a countdown and we're going through all the Bond films, but for me, I'm enjoying seeing all of them week to week, but for me this is a countdown to License to Kill. That's the one that I want to get to. That's, I could end the reviews after that, but I won't, because we've got the Brosnan era to talk about, we've got the Daniel Craig era to talk about, but I'm counting down the weeks and months for that one. But this one has really grew on me. It's very melodic. I think that Matt Monroe actually did travel to Istanbul, to Turkey, and to Istanbul to try and get some inspiration for the song. And he ended up using none of that influence in the song itself because he found that the Turkish music was quite comedic and lively and upbeat, and it didn't really fit what he wanted to do, and like the dramatic feeling of what should come with a Bond film. So, and of course the theme song was composed as well, I'm just reading here, by Lionel Bart, who did Oliver the musical, which I didn't actually know before doing this review, so that's really cool. It's a song that's growing on me. It's for those likes. It's more akin to, although I do very much prefer All Time High as a song to this song, but it's in that same ballpark. It's like the slow, like Moonraker, Shirley Bassey. It's the one that you're on a Sunday afternoon drive with the windows rolled down, driving through some country lanes at a relatively slow speed, and you're playing From Russia with Love. It's that kind of vibe for me. Now, your View to a Kill, that's when you're playing it when you're gunning it down the motorway at perhaps a little bit over the speed limit, but we don't talk about that. Carl says, watch Starship Troopers and then watch the Red Letter Media review. It's brilliant. I was actually unaware that they've done a review of that. I'm guessing is that their review series that they're doing, I'm guessing, but I doubt it's a Plinkett review. Otherwise, I probably would have watched it by now. Now that they've done a review on it, I'm inclined to possibly do a review on it. We'll see. I don't even know if I'm going to see it tomorrow. I've got a cinema ticket booked, but I'll see what mood I'm in tomorrow if I want to go back to the cinema to watch it. But yeah. But yeah. So, actually, there's one other bit that I wanted to talk about the music as well, which is always hilarious. And I did clock this last year when I watched it, and it's still brilliant now. John Barry's great. His use of music, his composition is absolutely just extraordinary, beautiful to listen to. But there is a moment where he uses the James Bond theme in this to an absolutely egregious level. And it's where Bond walks into his hotel room and he's quietly, slowly, deftly, methodically scanning the room to see if his room's bugged. And, he's checking the lights, he's checking behind the bed, he's checking the phone and everything. And the James Bond theme is playing in full statement, like loud as hell. Like, this is peak Bond. This is like in the middle of an action scene Bond. Like he's in a car chase or a helicopter chase or something like that. And he's just slowly walking around the room. And I think it's meant to be quite tense and mysterious and suspenseful and kind of plaguing your doubt, like you don't know who Bond can trust. And the James Bond theme's just playing so goddamn loud, and it's a great theme. I love it, but that's the one part of the soundtrack where it feels really out of place to me. It's just like we could have done with like some very, maybe the James Bond theme slowed down and a little bit more questioning, a little bit more enigmatic, or even just no music at all, just complete silence, and just just watch Bond scan the room, and let's just watch how he does what he does. Let's watch him be as methodical as he is, and soak up that silence, because I think that would have really added to the drama of the scene and the tension of the scene. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can. That there were some sound effects in the film that cracked me up, and I knew these were a thing. There's the bit where Bond's with his girlfriend at the beginning, and he's on the phone, and I think Moneypenny's says, M says, get back here right now, you need to be mission briefed. And she's pouring at the phone to try and take the phone away from Bond, and he slaps her hand, and the sound effect that they use, it sounds like the dude's cracking a whip. It just slaps the shit out of her hand. It's hilarious. And then the other part as well, which again, 2022, we wouldn't be able to do this because it objectifies women, but it's where you got Tatiana Romanova. That's probably the whiskey talking right there. Tatiana's character, the Bond girl, and I think she's trying on outfits and stuff, and she stood behind Bond, and Bond just cracks her on the ass. It's absolutely hilarious. I completely forgot that happened. It just really made me laugh. And again, it's the sound effect. It's it's literally like a whip crack sound. Or it's like the sound in the Indiana Jones movies where he'd punch someone and if you've seen Indiana Jones, you know the sound effect that I'm talking about, but it just really cracked me up. And I think I was the only guy that laughed in the cinema. So, hey, don't sit next to me during a Bond film, I guess. But right, is that everything that I can say on From Russia with Love? I mean, there's plenty more to say. As I mentioned last week, and as I'm going to say every week, I am not a Bond aficionado. I'm really not. You know, there are podcasts out there. There are some great podcasts out there, great channels out there that you can go and check out and listen to where they dissect everything about Bond. They know every cast member, crew member, Easter egg, just everything there is to know about Bond. And those channels exist. I am not one of those people. I am not one of those channels. I am just a guy who is kind of a fledgling James Bond fan. And I'm learning, you know, I'm going to be watching these films hopefully over my lifetime a good amount more times than I have done right now. But nevertheless, I've talked for almost an hour, give or take, on From Russia with Love. So I guess I know it well enough to talk for almost an hour on it. And yeah, like looking at next week as well, Goldfinger, I'm astounded, you know, just how quickly they were cranking these films out. Dr. No, 1962, From Russia with Love, 1963, Goldfinger, 1964. It was just boom, 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 wasn't it? So I can understand that fatigue setting in for Sean Connery. But yeah, it's just crazy to think that they were just cranking these. These were like the Marvel films of back in the day, weren't they? You know, James Bond will be back. James Bond will return, which features in the end credits of this film. You know, it's kind of those things that we see a lot with Marvel now. Seaward Man says you used to have the original Indiana Jones poster back in the day. What amazing posters they are as well. You know, all three of them, because the fourth one didn't exist. But even the poster for the fourth one's quite nice, despite the fact that the fourth one is one of the worst films that I've ever seen in my life. That's not even a joke. But yeah, the first three, the Drew Struzan designs are just chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. But yeah, I think I've said everything I pretty much can on From Russia with Love. Thank you to everyone once again for jumping on this week. It's great. You know, I don't know if I would have gone on for an hour if I was doing this on my own, and I probably would have faltered a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. But it's great when you guys jump on, because it feels like, you know, although I can't see you guys, it feels like we're having a conversation about it, which is all great. And yeah, times for next week. So I've got my tickets booked for both Goldfinger and for Thunderball. Goldfinger, I'm going to be back next week, exactly the same time again. So that's going to be Tuesday, the 3rd of May, and I'll be going live at 11 p.m. British Standard Time for that one. And that one's going to be interesting for me, because as I said, that Goldfinger's one that I've always held up. It was always in my top 10, sing its praises every single day of the week. But a lot of people that I've spoken to have been quite lukewarm on Goldfinger. They enjoy it, but it's not, you know, it's not hot shit. You know, it's not as good as maybe I initially think it is. Or maybe it will be. Maybe I'll love it even more. Who knows? And that's the beauty of going back through all of these Bond films and seeing them on the big screen, is that my opinions may change on some of these films. So do tune in for that if you're enjoying the Bond content. And of course, as this is a Bond video, and I'm going to be, you know, asking this question of you all in every single video, which is your favorite James Bond film, and who is your favorite Bond? If you're discovering this video after I've gone live, then please do get some comments going, and I'll reply to everyone's comments. And I'm interested in hearing your opinions, because there's so many generations of Bond. There's really a Bond for everyone, isn't there? And of course, as I mentioned, do subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, discussions, and live streams. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's going to be a lot of other videos coming out that aren't just the James Bond ones. Potentially, maybe a Starship Troopers review tomorrow. Or if not, then we've got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness out next week. In a couple of weeks' time, we've got the new Kenobi series as well on Disney+. So much to talk about. Weekly content, of course. And if not, then the Bond films are going to keep us going till October. So we're not going to be shy of videos, that's for sure. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter as well, I'm posting a lot more on there recently. And of course, it's the best way to keep updated with all the times that I'm going to be going live and everything. I'll always let you guys know. You can find me at Twitter at Hobbit Fan Editor. That's at Hobbit Fan Editor. Give me a follow on there, and let's talk movies. But once again, a big thank you to everyone tonight for staying up till midnight, watching me prattle on about From Russia with Love. And I can't wait to jump on next week and talk Goldfinger. Loving these videos, loving you guys jumping on as well. So thank you to everyone. Have a very good night, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Take care, everyone.